I've been teaching the FOSS Populations and Ecosystems unit now for some years, and I'm going to share my experiences with you. We use FOSS Population Ecosystems Guidebook. This is your Bible. When you first start this unit for the first time, you really want to follow it letter per letter, chapter by chapter, because it is scripted to help you. You come to this unit if you don't have any background in ecology, perfect. Because at the beginning of every lesson that you teach, there is a historical and scientific background that helps you to develop your own understanding of what the particular lesson is all about. And it makes you comfortable. This unit is designed to align itself with the national science standards. I come to use the science standards quite often because I can set up my goals. I can use check-ins to help me to see where students are at and to see what students need to understand by the time we're done with this. In addition to these standards that we work with, there are science and engineering practices that are deeply embedded in many of the lessons, often known as science inquiry skills. The one that I pointed out to you is one that is pretty much everywhere within the unit, analyzing and interpreting data. So as you develop your understanding of the standards, you also want to become familiar with the science and engineering practices. You can use the next generation science standards to read upon the practices. I haven't found them yet in Massachusetts State Standards guides, but I have found them within the National Science Standards Guide online. This FOSS guide is scripted and it is designed to show you a sequence of lessons. Major lessons, it gives you a synopsis of what the lesson is all about or what the investigation is all about. It discusses this key science concept, the processes that students will learn as they go through. If there's any media that's associated with it, it will be outlined. Readings that are associated with it and recommendations for extensions if you need to do this. It is a pacing guide, and you have to understand that your first time around, you are not going to finish this entire unit within one marking term. There are just other factors that continue to come up that will take up your time. And many of these factors, if you are not familiar with, are some of the standardized testings that students have to do, some of the pre-assessments that we have to do. So don't panic. You don't finish it within one marking term, you can't finish it in the next one. The science department is a wonderful site to help, a source to help you to understand what you need to do as far as pacing, what students need to learn, and what students need to know when you're done. So when you go into the science website, you also want to go to right on the left side is the welcome, and then underneath that tab is student learning outcomes and pacing guides calendar. So you want to go through this guide, the student learning outcome, and I'm just going to move forward here. The student learning outcome tells you how many sessions there are and recommended number of days and weeks that each investigation should be taught. You will find that you might be able to move through some of your investigations a lot quicker than the recommended times, because some of it is a lot of observations, some of it is construction. I find that if I'm pressed for time, some of the construction that doesn't necessarily factor into the entire lesson can be done during after school. And then I'll ask for a couple of volunteers to come and help me do it. In addition to the student learning and outcome guide, I find that the science department has a wealth of other resources that are available to us. So when I come down and look under science and literacy, we find that there are close reading resources. Then there are common writing assignments, which students are learning to write argumentations through science concepts. And then there's science notebooking, teaching us how to set up notebooks. These are all on separate tabs. I just cut and pasted and put together to make it a little easier to discuss it. In addition, there is the Massachusetts Department of Education Secondary Education Information Resources, elementary and secondary education. that allows you to look at some old MCAS questions. And you can use these MCAS questions as either do nows or you can use them as check-ins. So these are great resources. So become quite familiar with that source. You can also use that area when you need to order your kits. I've included a snapshot of how to plan a unit. For instance, when I first start my unit, I take my first week here. So in my first week, I'm able to cover investigations 1 and 2. In investigation 1 of this unit, we're pretty much talking about the milkweed bugs. We're talking about organisms. So students learn that a bug, which they probably don't even think of as being an organism, is an organism, which is a living thing that needs to be treated with care and respect. And I explained to them that we're going to observe these organisms over a period of 6 to 8 weeks, because they are the organisms that can show us some of the life changes that we need to study to understand the dynamics of certain populations. From that point, then I move on to the second investigation within the same week. I take about 2 days on the milkweed bugs. I divide the construction of the habitats. I do that by dividing certain pieces of the activity up among classes, just so that I can keep it moving and don't have to have students spend a lot of time in one area that can be time consuming and it can allow your classes to get away from you. So you want to manage that really, really closely. Then we move into the ecology of ecosystems. And with that, we view a video, and I take them on a field trip, which is outside, to do a field study to make some real world connections to the things that they are observing. So take your time, read through it, and you can see that some of the investigations can be done within a shorter period of time. Some might take a little bit longer, but then you become creative at how you assess and manage your time. This is it for the overview of the science and the population ecosystems unit. In my next segment, I will start to discuss the investigations and the lessons.